en photo? Tu peux me prendre en photo?
So, Valentina just informed me that I won't need an introduction by myself or for myself. So, welcome everyone, and I'm looking forward to this initial conversation that we are having today. It's good to see you all back here in Milan. It's been a while, I know. And this workshop which is titled Sustainability Unraveled on the Hows and Whats to Make Fragrances Sustainable, is considered to be an initial conversation between these two different spheres of perfumes, or artistic perfume mainly, and sustainability. And I'm very happy and honored to have very special and unique panelists on this panel today. So let me introduce you to the panelists from left to right. It is Dominic Rock, the Director of Responsible Sourcing at Firmenich in Paris. After studying at HEC, a famous management school in Paris, Dominic worked in the first wood energy initiative in France before joining the company Biolande, for which he set up subsidiaries for the production of natural extracts for the perfume industry in countries such as Spain, Bulgaria, Morocco, and Madagascar. And after that, he devoted himself for 10 years in purchasing natural extracts. In 2009, he joined Firmenich and developed the sourcing of natural products and partnerships at the origin places. And actually in 2021 and this year, he published a book and had a book presentation also on Wednesday here at Essence. The English translation will come out this year, I think. It is called, or it will be called, In Search of Perfumes, a Lifetime Journey to the Sources of Nature's Scents. It is published in French and also in German, which I'm very keen on reading. So, yeah, that's the first panelist. The second panelist is a well-known figure and a famous perfumer, I would say, in the niche part of the business. It's Nathalie Feistauer, a perfumer and the founder of Labscent in Paris. Natalie's biography is unique because she was one of the first trainees without a family background in perfumery, and she trained at Roure, nowadays Givaudan. She's been working for the company between 1983 and 2008, and after that she spent a couple of years at Symrise, and since 2014 she's an independent perfumer with her own company and a studio at La Marais, Montmartre, sorry. And she's been very prolific in the niche side of the business, so it's very good to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
The third person on the panel has also a very unique background, Natalia Micenevska. She's the founder of Belle Rebelle at London, and she actually has a background, or she worked in artificial intelligence, in finance and real estate, and she founded Belle Rebelle in 2020, actually during the pandemic. So if you go upstairs, you will see the booth and you can smell the perfumes. Actually, there are 769 ml scents on the market now, and she is driven by creativity and emotions, and she's actually, as she's mentioning it, she's bending traditional fragrance concepts. So we are keen on learning how you consider or how you conceive sustainability. And last but not least, a friend of mine from Hamburg, a German fellow, Matthias Bauch. He's been working in the industry for, I don't know, 25 years or longer. And he is the owner of a retail shop in Hamburg called Lubner Parfums, and feinste Düfte and Seifen, which means fine scents and soaps, basically. So it's very nice to have you on the panel. This is just a brief organization, what we are going to do in this hour. I'll give you a very brief background on what I consider as very relevant points of discussion or to discuss sustainability. And then we'll get into the discussion about materials and creation, branding and marketing, and retail and communication. So for each topic, you as the panelists are relevant speakers. And it ends with a sum up and a question and answer part. So to give you a very brief overview what sustainable development or sustainability actually means, I found, for instance, a definition by the Environmental Protection Agency, which conceives sustainability as, or to pursue sustainability means to create and maintain the conditions under which humans and nature can exist in productive harmony to support present and future generations. So I think the latter aspect of this is a very important point to consider and keep in mind. How is that put into the political realms or the political sphere? And you might be familiar with this overview of the United Nations. There have been reports by the United Nations on sustainability in terms of the Brundtland report in 1987 and the Agenda 21. But since 2016, these development goals, 17 goals, we see as planned until 2030. And they focus on different aspects such as ending poverty, strategies to build economic growth, social needs are considered, education, health, and so forth. And in our context, I do think that responsible consumption and production, so goal 12, becomes of key importance. And I would like to quote that sustainable consumption and production in this context means it is about doing more and better with less. It's also about decoupling economic growth from environmental degradation, increasing resource efficiency, and producing sustainable lifestyles. So when we switch to the sphere of perfume, actually I'm listing here a couple of, I call it motivations, inspirations, and logics, so to say, of sustainability. You see here aspects such as risk, security, limits, long-term planning, ethics, care, respect, and so forth. And if we try to align that or match that or put in contrast to the aspect of artistic perfume, you have this, broadly speaking, this philosophy of Rudnitska, the art of perfumery: quality, creativity, ingenuity, individuality, content, stories. So you have, one of the challenges in the future might be how to match these different logics and backgrounds and ideas. So you'll see I put here important actors when it comes to perfume or artistic perfume. So the manufacturing of materials, of course, creation, retail, and consumption, so the consumer being in focus. And here are some of the most important, I think, drivers of sustainability. So you see aspects such as transparency. I call it fractalectuals. It's something you see in cosmetics, skintellectuals. So those people or those consumers are really into the ingredients and what is inside. So this might be a trend for the future to think about that in the perfume sphere as well. But you see also other aspects such as, of course, storytelling, awareness, care, and maybe on the more creative side, aspects such as secrecy, complexity, efficiency, quality, of course. So in the longer run, this might be something to look at toward, I call it toward sustainable perfume aspects to discuss for the future. So I don't want to go into detail with that. The foci of sustainability, on the left side, you see aspects such as labor, biodegradation, and so forth, so different foci that we can look at. And on the other side, you see aspects such as perfume ingredients, bottles, caps, and so forth that are also worthwhile to look at. And just mentioning a sideline, we don't want to go into detail with that. When we mention sustainable, it doesn't naturally or automatically mean natural, because as you can see here from one of the quotes, I mentioned that here or underlined it. It says in one of these articles, instead, younger people are more likely to research scientific alternatives that, although maybe synthetic, are actually more sustainable in the long run. So natural doesn't automatically mean sustainable. All right, and how are we doing this now for the rest of our session? I would like to start along the value chain. One intention to have the four of you here at the panel is to discuss sustainability holistically, so looking at the early stages, so resource gathering. So we'll start with a focus on materials and creation, and then subsequently speak about these other spheres. So let me first sit down and ask Dominic to give us a very rough and brief overview of how you consider what sustainability means from your side and how it is actually measured and monitored.
Okay, thank you for this very simple question, which I will be happy to answer in less than 2 minutes. Just a few remarks for the audience. I think we all agree that and just listening to you, Bodo, it's really very easy to get completely lost in this sustainability landscape because righteously it covers an incredible scope of different issues. Let me be trying to be illustrative here. For all companies, small, medium, big, mine is rather big, sustainability could try to meet expectations of the way the company in his 36 factory deals with water use and energy production. At the same time, different people can expect from that same company to reassure them on the livelihood and in vanilla planters in Madagascar, and to know whether the children are going to school or if they are slave in vanilla plantations. Just to give you the broadth of what is sustainability. So of course, and I think that's my first remark, is that this care, this very strong focus on sustainability is incredibly recent. I mean, a lot of companies, again, small, medium, large, no classification here, have been doing very good things for a long time. But the fact of designing an entire sustainability strategy, putting entire teams and chief sustainability officers for the biggest company is very recent. We have to realize that. And honestly, I think the steps that have been taken to try to embrace this whole concept is pretty impressive, although, and this has to be said also, it keeps bumping, and we understand all why, against the fact of saying, all this greenwashing, okay? So it's consciousness around sustainability, a lot of efforts in all industries, but we'll stick to ours, and at the same time, the problem is so large because basically we are confronted to all planet issues, okay? The planet is not sustainable, so who's going to claim to be, as a company or as an individual, completely sustainable? And this suspicion for anything that is related to business of greenwashing, especially when you are dealing in businesses that deal with nature and with people living in the nature. You know, you source ingredients to put in your bottles. So one side you have molecules, so it's chemistry. So around chemistry, you have a lot of suspicions and a lot of questions. You know, wow, your ingredients, what is their feedstock? How they biodegradable? How they renewable? Bunch of questions. And then you move to the natural part of your bottle, and there you have the story in 45 countries of 150 different botanicals, and for each one, you have very relevant questions. You know, where do you source? How do you source? How much do you pay? How are the agricultural practices of jasmine flowers in India or of Peru balsam in Salvador, etc., etc. So the task is huge, and I just want not to take too much time to say that whatever we do, and honestly, everybody does a lot. Everybody, there's a real consciousness. It's a journey. It's a journey. You can only say, I'm on my journey to sustainability because of my consumers' priorities. I decided to focus on that aspect or this aspect. We have to remain super humble.
Thank you.
Maybe we can focus on the second question in context with that, because you gave us the impression and the idea, for instance, to talk about vanilla. Can you give us some examples of good representations of ingredients, how sustainability first started and is nowadays changing, or like what did you basically do to make the harvest and the growth of the ingredients more sustainable?
Thank you. So again, we have to see, for a company like us, you have first part of sustainability work is demonstrating that the company is doing the best as a company in terms of people, factories, energy use, etc., etc. Then you move to the raw materials that we use, and again with two very distinct parts: chemicals, naturals. For chemicals, the big issue, the big work is what we call green chemistry, which focuses on many things. There is a huge challenge for the future for Firmenich, like for everybody else, about the feedstock that are going to be used to produce the terpenes of the future. Are we going to keep doing them from oil, or are we going to be successful in moving to using wood residues or pulp industry residues? Makes a huge difference, okay? So we are in that journey. You asked me for examples, and we are now a growing part of our chemicals produced from renewable feedstocks, and also pure chemical processes that have succeeded, and it's a lot of investment in terms of money to change the process and end up with completely biodegradable ingredients, which is the ultimate goals. So this is well, on the natural side, there I have to be super honest. We have fantastic examples of successful supply chains. I was mentioning jasmine in India. We've invested a lot, so we have a complete knowledge of who the farmers are, how much money they make, what is their agricultural practices. So, and we have labels and certifications at very high level for this product. But we have 150 products, you know. So how in a few months or a few years do you think, you know, that you can address at the same time and do a similar work on 150 products? It's a huge challenge, because, and sorry for insisting on that, the consumer doesn't care that you are very, very good on Indian jasmine. He wants you to be good on all naturals, you know, and he wants you to prove it through certifications. And the certifications, this also has grown over the years, I've raised the bar to an incredible level today, which the consumer can think, well, this is normal, you know, we want to know everything. We want to know schools, health, water in Madagascar. We want to, and you take it, you always have it. And the certifiers want you to be sure that there is no waste in the villages that cultivate jasmine, etc., etc. So it's ongoing. It's a huge challenge.
Mm. I mean, we will certainly discuss later on. We had a conversation at the coffee table earlier this morning, and mentioning that some of these aspects focusing on sustainability, how do you communicate that towards the final consumer? We'll talk about that when we come to retail, also to branding. But I'm curious to learn more. What are the key drivers to become more sustainable? So what force or what makes you become interested in sustainability, broadly speaking? I mean, there have to be some, well, of course, intellectual, emotional aspects to it, but it has to be an economic advantage, I think.
Yeah, it's complicated. I think each company has its own DNA. Let's start from that. So let's acknowledge that some are more concerned and some less concerned. It's a fact. That's the base. Then again, we, because of the use of so many natural products in perfumes, we're exposed to something that is a real representation of the state of the world, especially of the tropical countries, with all the issues linked to that. You could say that we're trying to do good to give ourselves good conscience. I think it goes way beyond that. If we don't do anything, if we keep the practices that have been in place for so many decades, some products will disappear. Some products will disappear, just as simple as that. So it's probably a matter of consciousness for the poverty of the world, but it's also defending the future of perfumery.
Right. Natalie, you have some additions. I think I saw you nodding, and
no, but you know, like just you know, like some people in Egypt, they are growing geranium. Egypt may have to sow wheat. So what about if one day they say we pull out all the geranium to do wheat? We don't have geranium. It's as simple as that. So natural is not an easy product, because you know, one day you have a nice crop and another day you don't have a nice crop. And yes, I think that hunger in the world and the war and everything, it will change your. And after, you know, when you distillate, they cut the wood, which is not a good idea also. So it's just, I agree with Dominique, it's a very, very complex question.
I would suggest to integrate this focus on the supplier side also in the further questions that are now more focusing on the creative aspects, and just having Natalie sitting next to me, we are looking at these aspects of how to use sustainable ingredients, or how to make use of sustainably grown parts of nature, broadly speaking. So I put that on this slide, the first question: which criteria both enable but also prohibit to work with sustainable materials? I think we also talked about aspects such as prices, availabilities, accessibilities, and quality standards. What is your take on that?
First of all, it's a very complex question. When you dig, it's getting even more complex. The more you dig, the more complex it is. Just one thing is, yes, indeed, a lot of clients, they come to us, not all, but a lot are coming, like they want to be all natural, they want to be green, they want to be bio, they want to do this. But you know, a lot of them, and they are sincere in their quest, but a lot of them is more like a marketing story. So when you scratch, you know, like they go to all natural and they realize that it's not possible, or the price or the limitation of the palette you cannot do. So a lot of people, they really want to have like vegan, that, and that. We can do, but you know, like if you scratch, if you are all natural, is not the IFRA is not very intuitive, but it's full of allergen. So like people are very shocked when they know that the more natural you are and the more allergenic you are, because for them all natural means super healthy. So it's enough. After you also have but nowadays it's a big thing. It's not a little wave, it's a big wave. And also you have applications like Yucca or other applications. So people love to be green in those ones. But so for us, it's challenging because you have to change the BHT, the this, the that. But you know, like I'm doing it. You know, I don't use BHT anymore, so I use Tinogard. But you know, like I don't know, maybe in 5 years, Tinogard would be forbidden also. So okay, you adjust. There is I try to be the most sincere, but a lot of this is like you do your best, but you don't have so many products that are biodegradable and this and that. So I do my best, but it's not an easy question. I'm sorry.
I think that's a very valid point, and we'll come to that also when it comes to branding and marketing later on. But I'm curious. I'm also curious about from a perfumer's perspective and olfactive standpoint. Are there challenges in your work in creating with sustainable ingredients? So not only speaking about natural, but sustainable, like Dominic also mentioned earlier, it can also affect chemical or like synthetic materials.
I have a lot, more and more also I have a request to be transparent. So transparent basically is people want to know more what I have. So this is something I can do, like to not formulate with CMR, except CMR from natural. You can be vegan. Vegan is quite easy to do. You can remove the BHT. You know, there is some stuff that it's easy to do. After, if you want to go in another level, it's more complicated and more complex. And I don't know. We don't have the palette yet. At least me, I don't have it. Maybe in Firmenich you have, but me, I don't have a sustainable stamped product like that. But you know, I try to be as clean and transparent as I can. When people ask me, not everybody asks me.
Dominic, here we touch on what you claim you're doing, and then when asked to prove it. So just in order to be able to answer our clients' questions, we had to design something we called Ecoset Compass, which is taking each molecule, each natural, and scoring it. It's a complex and I hope smart enough way to do it, but you give that score, you give a document to the client, and from there he can investigate why you have that score, what's in it, the social aspect, the environmental aspect, the chemical aspect.
And the intention is to better the score, or to make it better or higher, or
completely. Back to the concept of journey, you know. So we have targets that we set ourselves for 2030. The big focus that we have is on biodegradability and renewability as a whole for the whole molecules. And these are huge challenges because we set very ambitious targets. And again, I don't want to bring everything to Firmenich only, because I know our competitors are working hard also. It's an industry move.
I'm also curious, I put that here on the as the second question, and maybe it's more like a brainstorming, but I'm asking you, Nathalie, again, sustainable perfumes, if we are heading that direction, can you say they are qualitatively better? Can they be, no, it's, yeah. I'm just curious. I mean, you can build a logic out of that, so make it more expensive. Or if the ingredients are more expensive, the products could be more expensive.
Like Dominic said, it's a journey. So you know, me, I am independent. I'm working with Ariel Parfum mainly. They can buy for everybody, so they can buy maybe sustainable ingredient also from Firmenich or from other company. But I don't have, I told you this before, I have all the ingredients that I want, but it's just the beginning of sustainable. Transparency we can do, this we can do, but sustainable, I don't have, sorry.
Maybe if I may, just an illustration of that is that, for instance, back to naturals, the first thing people expect is to know everything. Where do you take it? Who grows it? Who distills it? So this transparency move seems very obvious today, but it was not. It's an industry that was incredibly secretive, okay? And that is forced by the strengths of consumers to open up. So this is the first very good point. Then to your point specifically, the best illustration is, I keep on jasmine, does a jasmine absolute grown traditionally with pesticides, fertilizer of various types, or a so-called organic absolute smell differently? Okay? So one thing for sure is the second costs more. The second costs more, especially if it has to be certified, because it's not only what you have to change in the fields, it's to pay the certification. Honestly, I will say there is still debate among our perfumers. Some say, oh wow, I've never smelled such a fine and great absolute. But is he influenced by the fact of knowing that there was no pesticides involved? It's possible, you know. So it's not like it's day and night, honestly. It's
nuances.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. But still, I mean, it's, yeah, and you can make claims about it, yeah. Let us move a little forward when it also comes to branding and marketing. And the next questions mainly go to Natalie and also to Natalia and, well, to all of them. So the first question that I'm asking here is, and I'm looking at you now, how to turn sustainability into a USP of or in artistic perfumery. What was your, like, when you first started the journey of building your own brand, how did you come across sustainability, and how did you approach it, and how did it become a USP?
First of all, good morning. It's so nice to see you all here. I'm super excited. I'm invited to this panel because I think it is an interesting topic and we have to open up and talk about difficulties. I think, should that be a USP? Should that be a USP? You know, sustainability, or is it something that we have to be? It has to be a no. It's not, to me, it's not an USP. It's basically, I can't see any other way forward. Okay. And you know, owning a brand, it's a responsibility. It's a different sort of responsibility. Of course, everything, it's messy. Different concepts are coming to life, and different materials, different way of producing, combining, as we have had, the materials. But the industry, it's not perfect. Nothing is perfect, but, and us are not perfect, right? So acknowledging that and having this in the communication, it's a key. We're not perfect people. But what we can do our best. And I think that it's very relatable to the customer. I don't think the customer wants perfection. I think they want us to see working towards one goal. And that comes from retail perspective, from production perspective, from ingredients point of view. And you know, I quite often question myself and question everything around us, and you know, I get angry, I get super frustrated at times, and I feel like, why sustainability is so expensive? Why is it that we have to produce millions of quantities? You know, why? We are learning. We are there to discover as well. And I think having an open mind and having the journey somehow communicated to the customer, it's very important, because they want us and they want to be involved in the conversation. We constantly seek feedbacks. And I think what makes Bell great today. It's just that, being as straightforward as we can, acknowledging the fact that we are not perfect, acknowledging the fact that it's difficult, but trying to do something about it, trying to reduce or eliminate secrecy, and sit down actually in one table and have an open communication channels and conversations. I think this is what we are looking for. We are not looking for, USPs. I think this is what basically.
I put that into the second question also, and Dominic, I think, mentioned it in a different context earlier. We are seeing a kind of continuum, so it's not a 0-1 logic of either not sustainable or sustainable. It's a way towards, like I also mentioned it earlier. So for you or for your brand, I see or I understand that you are also looking at packaging, at other aspects, not only the juice or not only the scents. Where does it start? Where does it end? And where is your journey going?
I think it's the whole responsibility, and when you have that responsibility of, producing something, and I don't want to destroy environment. I am part of it. We are part of it. We are, communicating. And I think I met interesting people along the line. It's been very hard to learn across the perfumery on all levels. And because it has been difficult, it interested me more. And I wanted to find out more. And today we are in a much fortunate position to even meet more people and be challenged. And
can you speak about some of the most relevant challenges that you had while building up or setting up the company and the brand?
Of course, I would just say packaging. Packaging is something to consider. Mycelium packaging, we have used it, we started with using the material, and it's a great material to use, but learning how to work with that material as well, so that it works well along the line. It doesn't take space in terms of logistics and storage and shipments, and so that the retail partners can work freely. And it's, again, step-by-step approach. And I think, I would love to introduce more sustainable materials. I'm glad and I'm happy to, and privileged in the sense that we work with mycelium. We have our boxes as well are made from upcycled fibers, and 30%. Would we want more? Of course we do, but there are limits to everything. You can only do, what industry is ready for. But as well, you could introduce the concepts and try to challenge the industry standards and see where it takes. But that process has to be more of a step-by-step approach, so that down the line, first of all, the message is clear. And it works for everybody, because if there is a, an element that it doesn't work, then what are we doing? So that's important.
Yeah, I have a very, sort of political question, the third one here mentioning, and I would like to ask for all panelists a brief question in that regard. So I mentioned here how to differentiate a truly sustainable, if that exists, from a greenwashed brand. I think, like we talked about that earlier, greenwashing or having the notion of sustainability as a very positively featured notion. I mean, you are certainly quickly into the sphere of greenwashing. How do you, or how can we and the consumer ultimately differentiate between the two? If you start, who wants to start?
No, I think it's pretty simple. This is why certifications were invented. Not invented, but why they have grown so much. So then it leads to the complicated questions: how many certifications, different certifications? When will we succeed as an industry in uniting these certifications more? Okay, debate. But today, it's a first very important step. You can try to claim, I've done this in Madagascar and this is fantastic, but anyone can today step up to you and say, well, how do you prove it? How do I know it's true? True. Certifications. So it's more, I think we're in a stage now, very interesting, where we are trying to challenge more and more the number and the identity of the certifications so that the best emerge. I think there is just an example, because it's been pretty much in the audience these days, is EcoVadis. EcoVadis didn't exist, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. And today, EcoVadis is assessing on the same criteria 95,000 companies throughout the world. And this is way beyond perfume industry, okay? So clearly, these guys are winning a battle, okay? Yeah. And our industry is still in the expectation of who will win the battle within more in the perfume industry.
Yeah. If we change from these early steps of value creation towards the ladder or towards retail, is it really, like Dominique was mentioning, certificates, does it matter for artistic perfume consumers yet, or are they asking questions about, do they know about greenwashing, or is green just...
First of all, thank you for the invitation. And speaking for the retail side, towards the customer, what we experience in the shop is really that it's quiet. There's not really many questions about it. It feels like it's more like a background discussion for now. So what we experience is that the demand is quite hedonistic still. It's not that we have questions every day about this in the shop, but you feel like, as we say in German, it's the silence before the storm, and you feel like we should be prepared in the industry. We know how quick trends can evolve, and questions or topics can be blown up through social media, so it will be there at some point. Also through different aspects. I just shared with you in the German major TV, we had 2 weeks ago, we had a coverage about the sustainable sourcing. I think the example was agarwood, like in the prime time. So it was the first time that something like this came up to the media. So at some point there will be an interest. Also, thanks to brands like yours, when I as a retailer put you on my shelf, then we can compare with the other brands, or the customers will compare and start to ask questions. Right. But for now, it's surprisingly quiet. Okay. Also, when you compare with skincare, where customers ask much more questions, where they want to have organic skincare, natural skincare, they don't ask these questions in perfumery. Okay. I mean, it would be a different discussion if we speak about natural and synthetic ingredients. Right. It's a more complex discussion, and maybe at some point it would be good to discuss this with the customers also, right, and come more up with this. But I think, it's still not very big, but it will be big quite soon. Also, what we experienced is this whole Lilial question that became in the scene, in the niche scene, which is quite connected. It became a big topic, so customers all of a sudden they knew about it. So they start to question, there are ingredients in my fragrance that can be harmful. Why is it not allowed anymore? So it started to raise questions. So I think there are many aspects, or just simply the new generation, like you are a young person, and for you it seems like it's more like a self-understanding. It's not like something you have to make up, or I have the impression it's your self-understanding, and you wonder why it's so difficult to set up a sustainable brand. True. If this generation also on the customer side comes up, I think we need to be prepared for this. Yeah. And also I think it's a chance for the niche to be quicker than the big brands, because the big brands, we know they are preparing this. And at some point they will communicate more on it, and I think it's easier for niche brands to...
Well, I think that's one of the characteristics of artistic perfume, or also this fair or this event, is to be at the front, so at the very front of development in general. And I think sustainability then can be one aspect. You said it's not a USP for you, it's more like built DNA, it's built into...
It seems for her so
it's self-understanding.
And it's just something that, you know, we acknowledge the fact that there is so much to learn, and definitely try, and not try, but actually not make claims that are not right, or understanding what are we claiming as well, you know? So I agree with the certifications. I agree with, you know, being a part of a wider sustainability world and more transparency as much, you know, as possible. And I think to some degree I agree with you, it is easier for us smaller brands because we can afford to be a little bit more flexible, and that comes from production line because the quantities are not huge. I mean, if you fight for it, because that's another concept anyway. But as well, I sometimes wonder if we can do this with a small team, limited budget, limitations, time constraints. Why are other guys not doing it? And I hope that we can, you know, really move forward, because I still feel skincare, it's stepping up.
I think like the big brands are preparing.
Even fashion.
They're preparing for this, and at some point they will be sustainable. But it's, if you are like a brand that's many years on the market with a big catalog of products, it takes some time with different suppliers. But I think at some point they will just be done, and it doesn't make sense to communicate for them when it's only half of the assortment that is sustainable. So they will wait until their whole catalog is sustainable, and then they will start communicating on it. But it will take more time, and you are opening a new brand from the scratch, so you don't need to change things. You just start like this.
I also believe, like, the quantities, you know, the fact that we are speaking that the big brands cannot be flexible because they have this assortment, and, you know, there is a huge monopoly in terms of production as well. I see it. I fight for it every day.
Before we enter the last sphere of retail, I would like to ask also Natalie regarding this third question. You nodded when you saw it truly sustainable versus greenwashed. Do you have a take on it from a perfumer's perspective?
As I said, it's a very complex situation. I think we try to be the most sincere. As I told you, I don't have really like a sustainable ingredient at this stage. So, but as I tell you, some people, not all, but some of my clients, they want to be transparent. They want to be without CMR, this and that. This we can do. We are very thorough, we are very serious about that, but it's not something, you know, like, not all, but it's true that 3 years ago, nobody asked me to be transparent. Now, you have people from Canada, from the US, from other countries, they want to be like that. Truly, to be transparent like Rose and Henry or Fleur, you know, you can see the list. Actually, it's not. It's smart because, you know, like as you know, with GC, you can have the list of ingredients. So it's not such a big deal to give the list of the ingredients. But for me, it's more like greenwashing, because when you see the list, it's 99% of the ingredients that you use on a daily basis. It's like nothing really restrictive or whatever. It's just, and you know, like maybe people are happy to know that okay, we use linalool, but you know. I don't know, it's like the general public. So it's like more a trend about they want to know, like Yuka and the app, to know more and more and more. You have people who like to know more and more, but it's really for me a marketing tool.
Okay. That's a very interesting facet that you are mentioning, and I think when we come to the final aspect of retail and communication, the question for Matthias here is, how do you actually, or can you actually promote this sustainable thinking also towards the consumer? Or I mean, you mentioned earlier that they are at this stage, there are hardly any people confronting you or asking you questions in that regard. I mean, there has to be some kind of communication, or you have to have some knowledge also from a retail perspective to be able to deal with these aspects.
I mean, first of all, you have to acknowledge what Dominique said before, that it's quite a complex topic. So for me as a retailer, it starts from where do I source my scent stripes in the shop, or how do I treat my employees or my partners in the shop. This is all, to me, sustainability. And I think it would be difficult to communicate the sustainability question in perfumery towards or through the perspective of each and every brand. This shop has more than 100 brands. Yeah. It would be crazy if it would be the job of my sales assistants to communicate the individual strategy and sustainability of all these brands. So it needs to be a common self-understanding thing. So we are ready to answer questions, and I think it is also the chance for your industry, for all the Firmenich and Symrise in the world, to maybe step out a bit of the B2B closet and communicate more also towards the final customer in a more generic way, not brand way. So maybe at some point you provide tools or communication tools that are more generic and not related to a specific brand, where we can speak about this with the customer and, I don't know, show what sustainable sourcing means for you as a producer.
That's a very interesting point.
Just a comment here, maybe. I think there's a very interesting evolution where we come from a situation where the launch of a perfume would list a series of ingredients that the press people would describe somehow in the magazines, period. You know, so you know, you're familiar with this. And there's an evolution to what we call hero ingredients. The concept of hero ingredients is very interesting, which is that at the launch of a perfume, then you will say, the perfumer can say, this is something I constructed around Gaillac, Bulgarian rose, and a third one. Then what's new is that when it does that, there must be beef on the bone, which means he has to be able to talk fully about his Bulgarian rose. You know, where does it come from? Where is it produced? To make it a real hero ingredient and not only a name in a magazine. Okay? So this evolution, I think, is interesting because it looks like the consumer won't let go. They want hero ingredients. They're very interested, except the concept of what they put behind is much more demanding now.
Yeah. I think that's a question of knowledge, communication, of going deeper than just listing the pure ingredients or the notes that are in a perfume. The second question that I'm listing here, my question goes to Natalie again. You mentioned earlier that clients of you are looking more and more into the, sustainability. What is your take? Yeah? No? Not sustainable. It's transparency. Yeah, so it is.
But just also to say about what Dominique said about, you know, hero ingredient. I love to use beautiful, natural, like osmanthus, like, you know, this. But for me, it's not about. Of course, I like to have beautiful ingredients that I know they are coming from beautiful field. Everybody's happy, whatever. But it's also. Me personally also like what you do with osmanthus. Is it just osmanthus or you do creation? It's like, you know, like when you say Chanel has a beautiful silk, or Hermes, the leather is so beautiful. For me, it's not just about, wow, the leather is so beautiful. It's also the design that you are with it. So, and after, you know, like when you mentioned Gaillac was because it's CITES for over a year, it was not possible to export Gaillac because everybody used Gaillac in all the bio, blah, blah, natural product because it's not so expensive. So if you use too much natural, sometime after, like Paraguay, says, I don't know, you didn't have this issue?
Yeah, but we're going to solve it.
No, it's
For
solved.
the benefit of the world.
Yes, but you know what I mean is like if you use too much natural, at the end, you know, like Paraguay, they stopped for over a year because they would deplete their reserve.
Okay.
So if you're using too much natural, you can destroy nature also. So this is why when I start to say everything is very complex. And you know, it's very complex. I love the question. I love to be sincere. I love to be good for the earth. I love to be blah blah. But I also like, I love to make beautiful perfume with beautiful ingredients. And I like that it comes from this field or whatever, but this is, my job is to use this and to make a beautiful perfume.
Okay, so, sorry, just two comments, very interesting.
Yes.
One thing I completely agree with you, another I disagree.
Okay,
The agreement.
Fine.
I don't want to deprive any of the perfumer role and fantastic job.
No, I didn't say that.
You know, describing and having flesh on an ingredient, for instance,
I
osmanthus, I completely agree. Osmanthus has so many facets
Oh, it's beautiful.
that it's not enough to say I used osmanthus. And normally you will say this perfumer has given this aspect, this leather or apricot aspect to
Yes,
osmanthus and ananas. So it's two parts. But this does not prevent from saying from what part
I
of
agree.
China it comes and that it's been sort of sustainably
Yes.
picked and sourced. So
Yeah.
the two can complement. That we use too much natural, this I cannot let you say that.
No. It's just, you know, in case of Gaillac, because a lot of cosmetic product, it was natural, they used too much Gaillac and they had to stop to export to let the nature.
Okay, Gaillac, we're not going to bore the audience with
Yeah,
very
but
technical issues, but it's a fantastic example of what was done
And
in
now-
the past and what cannot be done today. There is incredible resources of Gaillac, only this is
It's a political
this
stuff,
is taken in the deforestation issue of Chaco, which is
you know
maybe
more of
one
the
of the
subject than me,
highest deforestation rate in Southern America to give way to the cows and to the soy. And this is because our industry was not able to come up with forestation and plans long term. And this is currently done, and the CITES will lift the ban. It's just as simple as that. You know? So, so anyway.
Yeah, no, but it's very complex.
Maybe we can discuss also later about that. I think there are some
Yeah, sorry
issues.
about that.
Sure, no, that's fine. I would like to end up, before you have the opportunity to also ask some questions, I would broadly end up with a final question that I would also like the panelists to answer briefly. When we consider sustainability, as I mentioned earlier, in the context of luxury, Matthias, I think you mentioned it to begin with. How does sustainability alter, challenge, or question actually traditional understandings of luxury, and artistic perfume being one of the spheres that is representing traditional luxury?
I think this kind of luxury understanding that luxury brands, I don't know, are more close and in a secret world and not communicate too much on how they work or what materials they use. I think this is melting down, and we see this with the big brands that there's a shift on this. And like I said before, they prepare, and at some point it will be just clear that luxury can also mean sustainability. I think this is clear, when I look at artistic perfumery, I think it's a big chance for artistic perfumery to be faster than the big brands, to be more innovative, to be more daring. And also when I think of, because you just discussed about ingredients and naturals, I think it's a chance to show how complex the world and the perfume bottle is. Because to my impression, customers are always surprised when you talk about, I don't know, there are maybe 50 ingredients in that bottle, and there are farmers in Madagascar and in Haiti working on making your perfume so beautiful. And then there's the perfumer who puts this all together. I mean, this is the fascination of perfumery, and many customers, especially young customers, are not aware of this. Yeah. And I think it's a fantastic chance to speak about the diversity and complexity of what is in the perfume bottle.
Natalia, your brand, it's a new kind of representation of a new luxury. Would you say that, or?
I mean, it's a perception, right? Luxury. Then within that scope of luxury, how do you define it when you buy that product? What does it mean for you? Does that mean that everybody have been paid fairly along the line, that ingredients were, intelligently or cleverly combined together to use as little as possible for your message, for that product? And I think it's very much how we define and redefine the luxury. And is a luxury for you, for that product to be so beautiful and shiny and tidy, or is the luxury a little bit more rough around the edges? Let's face it, what is it? And so I find that perception changes. And to me, even as a consumer today, I buy that product, I really want to know that, first of all, I'm not harming the environment, I'm not harming people along the line, that everybody has been rewarded fairly, and that in itself, for me, that product, it's so amazing, and it can stay, and I can reuse it, or it can be a part of me. It's part of my individual brand as a human being. I feel that this is so exciting, because I know that if I have this, then it's so special, because everybody put their hearts, their interest, their creativity. They were inspired. I think that's a luxury today, and there is still a lot of work towards it. But the perception is slowly changing, and let's see it. I think we live in chaos, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, you see, because everything is changing, and we have to change with it. I'm glad that consumer has this realization, and we will witness wonderful things happening, and just would love to be a part of it.
I think it has just to start somewhere, and
yes,
it can't be perfect.
Exceed it,
It's a constant reflection of what am I doing, and I think also the consumers, they have to make these reflections, and they understand it's complex, that you can't be perfect every minute of your life.
Yeah, I think Dominic, at the beginning, you also mentioned that changes are taking place now compared to 20 or 30 years ago. There's much more interest in the background or the development that wasn't there before. Do you see that from your perspective also, that luxury is changing, or that, if you can make some claims about it?
I'm a little far away from the brands, but my perception is that there is a very interesting move in the fact that people are starting, some consumers, but not only, are starting to realize that the luxury aspect of perfumery is not strictly in the bottle. It starts in the fields somehow. Then you have, if you want to defend this idea, you have to be very solid in what's taking place at source, okay? And this is all about transparency, and I think a lot has been done. The doors of the producers at source, they are now open, which was not the case in the past. It's about transparency, and it's about fragility, taking in account, taking in consideration the fragility of these supply chains, and doing everything we can to support them. Okay? If we work on these two aspects, people know the truth of what's happening at source, and people know that there is a bunch of actions. It can be from all the feminists in the world, or from NGOs. It doesn't matter. Everyone has its role about supporting this supply chain. Then we have another side of luxury, because I'm taking again my example. A Jasmine Absolute is pure luxury. It's luxury. A million roses to be picked to do 1 kilo of oil. That's all said. Yeah. This is luxury.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and last but not least, from your perspective, you've been independent since 2014. And your creation, I assume that your understanding or the client's understanding of luxury is also changing. How is it, or how do you conceive it?
You know, when you're independent, you have different clients, you have more like a dialogue to develop. And I have to say that, yes, being independent in the niche, I can use beautiful ingredients. When you're working for Coty, Procter, whatever, you don't have the budget. You know, they dream to have jasmine, but if you have a drop of jasmine one every 2 years, it's great. So, you know, like, you talk a lot about jasmine, but when you work for a big group, you don't have the budget really to use those products. So yes, as an independent, I'm very happy to be able to use very beautiful product, but I'm not obsessed with it. For me, beautiful products has a meaning if you know how to make it beautiful. And you know, I'm not against synthetic or natural, but it's like when you cook. You know, when you cook, you have a veggie, whatever. If you have a lobster, okay, or foie gras, you can do. But good cooking is not just about lobster and foie gras. And you can have a lobster and you can destroy it because you put mayonnaise or you overcook or whatever. So for me, yes, beautiful ingredient, it's a pleasure to use. It's a privilege to use. But for me, it's not just, the journey is not there. Yeah. It's also beautiful ingredient, but also what you do with it as a creator.
Yeah. Thank you. I think we have time for about 5-7 minutes, right? Yeah. Or just there's one question, two questions we have.
Thanks a lot. First of all, excellent moderation, excellent moderator, and excellent team panel. Merci beaucoup. I have a question. I couldn't agree more with you, Dominique, about the fact that the luxury is truly in the bottle and comes from the field, and to help understand. But to the comment that was made by Matthias that I thought was very good, we need to educate brands, retailers, and customers about what makes an impact, what is truly more sustainably impacting in the full product mix, of which the packaging, of which the transport, and even more than the formula. I think is a brand sustainable tomorrow or not sustainable? Everybody said it, and it's really right. It's a journey. It's small steps, but also to try to understand better what are the first steps to take that makes most impact, and not to forget that the luxury comes from the field and from people, and so it's a mix and a balance, and to just choose a few elements to communicate on. So I just wanted to say thank you very much, because it summarized the complexity of the subject, the panic attack that brands are having at the moment, and how to help make sense, to advance rapidly, to improving slowly but surely. So a big thank you. It wasn't a question, it was more a comment. Except if any of you have feedback on this.
Great, thank you. One more question. Oh, there. Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. This on right, yeah, cool. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate the honesty from everyone involved. My question is to Dominique, though. You said at the beginning, specifically on Madagascar, about the human labor cost of all of this process. And you used the word slavery, especially referring to children like working. I just want to know what tangible steps, or at least ideas, thoughts, your company has to address that issue, and also what independents can do to address like these deeper issues and legacies.
I think Madagascar is one of the best or worst examples you choose of what we can do and what we cannot do. There is no state in Madagascar. It's just incredibly painful. So let's not dream. Companies will not compensate the lack of a state in Madagascar. So what we can do is, I think each Malagasy vanilla producer has a huge responsibility towards the network of farmers that they source from. Okay, so we've been supporting our producer a big way, and Madagascar is very interesting because you see the evolution of what can be done in the poorest country, starting with the incredibly basic, like primary schools, dispensaries, digging wells because to stop the women going 2 miles down to the river where they just have a resource in brown water, you know. And step by step improving and doing better. The latest steps, just as an example, is we're building with our producer a school for, not primary school, for the next step, for the young people 14 to 17 in the Sava, in the vanilla region, to teach them how to become farmers that have sufficient knowledge to decide how they should rely on vanilla and how they should not rely on vanilla, to sort of break and stop this fate of having to live with the sword above their head of the vanilla crisis, you know. So I could go for hours on that. Sorry, we have to stop. But it's a very good example of, we're not the only ones. Most of the big companies do very good things in Madagascar. And it's a laboratory of improving how the business can really involve itself.
All right. Thank you very much. With that said, and well, I would like to thank all the panelists for, and also the public, the audience, you for being here. Being German, I have to end up with a quote of Goethe, and he said, life belongs to the living, and those who live must be prepared for change. So I think that fits very well into the topic of sustainability, and we are certainly curious to learn more about it and find out how artistic perfume at Essence and beyond is reconfigured. So thank you once again.